Welcome back, Miami Dolphins. There's going to be a massive trade that happens, and I think we are going to be set at cornerback, and I'm going to tell you why. Right now, the Dolphins have been calling for teams, and one of them is Greg Newsome. If you watched my last video, we'll talk about that. Greg Newsome is a very good young corner. He had an off year, but so did every single Brown. And what I'm thinking is going to happen, I thought it was Jair, but the one thing with Jair is he was injured and he's older, like he's Jalen Ramsey. And I was like, it's kind of weird that the Miami Dolphins would be trying to get someone that's, older still and has a really big contract. Greg Newsome, on the other hand, is 26. And when you look at Greg Newsome, he's the type of dude that I think can really shine on this team. One of the other things that I want to talk about before we get into it and look at PFF is Cam Smith. And I think a lot of people aren't really seeing the, how do I say it, the necessity to have him play this season. He was a second-round pick. He was our first pick in the 2023 draft. And first year, he was a rookie, and he was a guy that we needed to develop, but has a lot of short area quickness, has a lot of burst in his step. It just needs to put it all together. And Vic Fangio just didn't play him. And the thing is, the next year, when he did play a little bit, he got injured. He was injured most of the year. I think he started the year with an injury and then got injured again later on in the year. Which, of course, there are some things like you need to take care of your body, and it's kind of unfortunate with Cam Smith. But the cornerback position, I think, is the one position that you have to play someone for them to get better at it. And when you looked at, a lot of people like to compare him to Noah, and I think they're two different players. Noah, really, when we picked that pick, nobody even knew who he was. Like, I remember when we picked that pick, I was like, who the hell is Noah Igbinoghene? I had no clue who that player was. But with Cam Smith, when we picked him and him as a pick, he was a very highly touted corner in South Carolina. And the thing is like I said, first year, Vic Fangio got here, it was a very weird presence. Even Jalen Ramsey didn't like Vic Fangio. Just decided to not play Cam Smith at all. Like literally 0 snaps. And that's a detriment. That was a detriment to him. And what I'm trying to add up with this, because when he played against the Cardinals and he played against other teams, yes, he let up some plays, but he also had a lot of good plays. And it's potential to build upon. But the thing is if you don't get reps as a corner, you don't get better, because you need to be out there. You need to have the flow of the game coming to you. And like I said, when you watch some of his, if you go to some of the film study, he definitely had that burst of speed, that short area quickness, that anticipation as a corner. So what I truly do believe, before we start talking about, Greg Newsome, is something I think a lot of people need to realize. Judging by the way that Chris Greer was talking in the press conference in the beginning of the offseason, saying that Cam Smith needs to grow up and, all these different things about Cam Smith, I truly do think that they're going to try and see what they got in him. We'll see what they do with Rasul Douglas or one of those other guys, but I think what's going to happen is what I'm going to talk about in a second. But I also think that Cam Smith is going to get a starting position. We're going to see what we have in him. He's our second-round pick. He was a very decently high pick, 51, I believe. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 51. And in that draft, he was considered and graded as probably one of the top corners in that draft. The, combination of being a young kid, work ethic, all of that, totally get that. But if he comes in, and this is what I truly think is going to happen with Cam Smith, we're going to wait till the offseason workouts. If he comes in and he comes in bigger, he comes in faster, he comes in more focused, we're not going to get another corner. I think that's only going to happen if Cam Smith just comes in and just looks exactly the same, doesn't really give a crap, which would suck, but that's the only way that happens. I think truly what's going to happen is Jalen Ramsey is going to get traded for one of the corners. We'll get our starting corner, and we're going to play Cam Smith to see what he has, to see if we have anything in that. And Cater Kohu's going to be there. He'll be our nickel guy. But I truly do think that if he comes in focused, because the way that we're building now, and, it's a lot of YouTubers are talking about this, and I think we can really be happy with this. Chris Grier is learning from his mistakes. He's building the team from the trenches back instead of getting all these star players on the back end or in receivers and trying to fill in holes as you go. He's reversing it, and that's why I think the cornerback we need to stop really worrying about. We're going to trade for one, and we're going to see what Cam Smith does, but we'll get into it. So as you can see right here, basically teams have seen that the Dolphins are calling about Greg Newsome, and here we go. We'll kind of talk about this, why I like Greg Newsome as a fit. Where is he? Player grades. Greg Newsome. So here we go. Greg Newsome. Now you're going to see he didn't play well last year, but this is one of the things that I think is key with him. 2021, he was drafted. He is 25, 26, 6'1", 192. When you look at him, his first 3 years were very solid. Very solid. This last year, yeah, the Browns were the Browns, typical Browns. Deshaun Watson was annoying and horrible, and people weren't really trying on that team. And he wants out. And the thing is one of the things that I love with this dude is he is one of those guys. He could play everywhere. Look, slot cornerback, wide cornerback. He played at free safety sometimes, even punt returned. He was in the box sometimes. He is a very good corner. And, he was one of those guys that, again, highly touted coming out of the draft, played very well, was very promising as a player. Now, the thing is of course, you see this bad year, you wonder what it's about. Again, the whole team was crap. It was just the Browns being the Browns. And when you look at Greg Newsome, when you look at his first years, he was a very good man corner. And you had someone that you could definitely, see that had a lot of potential, actually 24 years old. And that's why I think we're targeting him. Don't need to worry about pass rush grade. Coverage, he was, not great last year, but had an interception, had pressures, can tackle, and the thing is with him is he's 6'1", 190. So you're getting a big dude that can man that number one corner. He was the dude in Cleveland. He was the guy that was going to be the number one corner, if not was the number one corner. We'll look at the grades for this year, and, it wasn't always bad. He had some games that were very good this last year when he's playing Dallas. But again, it started to go downhill, and that's where you can start to see that, he was struggling to, and with this player, it's just a lack of motivation, a lack of, which is not, like a what do you call it? A thing that you want to really see, but it's a different type of thing where, as you can see, when he was playing last year, it was completely different. When you're playing on the Browns right now, your quarterback sucks. You can't do anything, and you're constantly going back on defense to try and stop people. You are not going to really care at a certain point. It's just going to affect you completely. And like I said, when you see him play his first couple years, he needs the right coaching and he needs the right system, but you can definitely get a kid that is going to come in and be able to man that number one position. And I'm telling you, I think they're going to make a big trade, and you're getting someone that's 24. That's the key to him, is he's 24. You're basically getting a first round pick that's 24 that has the potential, has shown the potential to, really boom when it comes to, becoming a decent corner in the league. Do I think he needs to be an all-star? No, because the thing with the way that our team is being built, we're going to give the quarterbacks 3 seconds. That's what we're kind of working on. And I'll talk about that right now. So yeah, as you can see, we are going to make a massive trade for Greg Newsome. And I thought he was 26. He's 24. The dude is literally a youngin'. He's probably almost the same age as Cam Smith. So what I see happening this year, last year, when it comes to Cam Smith, and you watch the Cardinals game and he got injured and all that. Another thing that happened that game is that he basically got taken advantage of by Marvin Harrison Jr., which, what did Marvin Harrison Jr. also do? Took advantage of Jalen Ramsey as well. Jalen Ramsey did not look good against him either. So when you take a look at it, Marvin Harrison was the only one that really got to Cam Smith. Everybody else, Cam Smith was pretty decent on. We're going to see what we have in Cam Smith. And we're going to make a massive trade. Jalen Ramsey's going to go to the Browns. And we're probably going to get Greg Newsome. Because I don't think Jalen Ramsey has a no-trade clause, so we can trade him wherever we want. We're probably going to trade Jalen Ramsey to the Browns, and for Greg Newsome, and we're going to have a young cornerback court. And the thing with our team now is, what I'm loving about our team, is we are going to have a team that we're not going to be focused on getting star corners so that our pass rushers can get to the quarterback. We're going to be getting pass rushers so our star corners don't have to cover the wide receivers very long. That's the philosophy that we're having now. We're building in the trenches. I think Chris Greer's finally learned. And he is going to make a team properly with all the people that are very negative. I think we really need to look at the way that we're building this roster right now and be very happy. Like I keep telling everyone, and this trade is going to make something big. Probably it might even be more than, because I don't see Jalen Ramsey going there. What I kind of see happening is that third round pick that we randomly traded for in the draft, that might have been that Chris Greer called called the Browns, asked what they wanted for Greg Newsome, heard it was a third round pick, or called a couple teams, got a third round pick for next year, and finessed it so that we could trade for Greg Newsome. And Jalen Ramsey, we might even trade for another player. We might get somebody else for Jalen Ramsey, because he's going to go to a contender. He doesn't really want to go to the Browns, I don't think. So, he could be traded there, but I don't think that Jalen Ramsey would throw a fit against Mike McDaniel to then go to the Browns. So I think we're probably going to use that third round pick that we got for next year's draft for Greg Newsome, and then Jalen Ramsey might be for an offensive lineman or somebody. And like I said, this team will be set if this offensive line stays healthy and this defensive line stays healthy. This team will be crazy, and I think people are really, because most of the Dolphin community are just Debbie Downers. It doesn't matter what the team does. They think the team sucks every year. It kind of goes along with the Tua thing. It's like, Tua could throw for 5,000 yards and 70 touchdowns, and they're still going to say he sucks. It's just the way that, the Dolphin fans are. But they're going to make a massive trade in a second, maybe today, but possibly in the next coming days of the week. I think that's what we got that third round pick for. We're going to get Greg Newsome. We're going to get a young 24-year-old. And going to see what Cam Smith has, because I think Cam Smith has a lot in the tank, and I think he's going to show it this year. But as always, guys, like and subscribe. Love you all. Fins up, baby. Peace.